Hey, what is going on, everybody? It is David Palmer, the Leo King, and welcome to my live show here on High Vibe TV and the Leo King Network. Super excited to be here today because we are going live to talk about this lunar eclipse in Leo. Literally, I know I almost got some echo there with it. Leo, Leo. Anyway, you know, it's the full moon, and it's even called the super blue moon, right? A very rare bluish tint to this full moon. And it just happened this morning, actually. And yes, there's the common denominators of what to expect astrologically in a lunar eclipse. There's, you know, the sensitivity, the dramatic, the kind of fulfillment of things, or things coming to a peak. And you know, I'm super excited because today I'm bringing on an awesome guest, Nicole, and she is so awesome because she runs an awesome YouTube page, and I actually want to show you this YouTube page because honestly, she's doing astrology really hip and cool, and I'm really into that. I don't really like people who, I don't know, kind of do it really cheesy. So if you actually look at this page, she's bomb. She's like got an awesome page. It looks really good. And it really showcases astrology in a way that I haven't been seeing in a while. Really high quality content, and it looks really good. If we can show it up on the screen. You've got to maximize it. If you go to that computer over there, Craig, real quick, you got to maximize that folder or that program. Yeah, maximize that. The middle, yeah, thank you. So it's super cool because look at her channel. She's got so much stuff going on, and she's got an awesome new video out about the eclipses in 2018. You're going to want to check it out on her video list. 2018 upcoming eclipses predictions for all 12 signs. Make sure that you guys check that out. It's going to be super cool. She's going to be a super cool guest today too. I have a couple other things that I want to talk about. Number one, on February the 15th, for the solar eclipse in Aquarius, I'll be live in Hollywood doing a live stream. And we're going to be doing a crystal ceremony. We're going to be doing a spiritual dance music. We have tickets that are available, so it's going to be super cool. You could see me in person, or you could see me on live stream, and it's super cool. And if you've never been to Liberate Hollywood, it is one of the coolest spiritual stores in all of LA and Hollywood, period. You know why? Because it's actually got a crystal floor, and on top of that, it literally used to record all the biggest names in literally music. Michael Jackson, Rolling Stones, I mean, you name it, they did all their recordings there. $20 general admission tickets, $75 VIP priority seating, which means you get to hang out with me backstage. You get your own crystal kit, or just join me live stream. It's $30 for the whole entire night. We're going to be celebrating a lot, doing a live ceremony. We're going to be doing a live you know, prayer, and it's really going to be good because I think we're going to really need it during this energy. And then, of course, if you haven't seen yet, my February report is finally here. So check it out now at inclusiveastrology.com. If you've never been to inclusiveastrology.com, go there, click on webinars. It's an awesome thing because I'm doing February 2018 flying high with the right support. Kind of an interesting way to put this month. So I'm super looking forward to that. Well, Nicole Brenny is here. Let's get her going. But first, let's check out a quick little commercial break, and we'll bring you Nicole. Hi, Grandma. How are you? Oh, I'm doing good. No, I'm eating really healthy right now in my life. Lots and lots of vegetables. Yeah. Potatoes too, you know, they're vegetables, aren't they? Yeah, no, I'm eating healthy. I feel really good. Yeah, I'm in shape too. Oh, my relationship, Grandma? Oh, it's going great. We're really connected right now. No, I mean, the love's there. She's you know, lots of attention. We really have really interesting conversations too. No, yeah, don't worry about me, Grandma. It's going good. Oh, my dreams. You know, you don't have to worry about my dreams. They're always coming true. Yeah, financially, everything's going good. I've got everything I want, the job I want. Yeah, everything's going good there. Future life? What's that, Grandma? I know, I'll follow your advice. What is it? It's a new app? I'll check it out. Future life.
future life. Wake up to your future like you've never seen before.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. We've got Nicole Brenny here. How you doing today, Nicole? I'm so happy to have you here, and I'm so happy to have you here, and it's finally working right. It feels so good because we actually did try this last time, but it works now. Aquarius, what a crazy sign, right?
Yes, yeah, it's been like such a weird long day, and I honestly have such a hard time sleeping during full moons, and this was like a million times worse. So I'm like, I'm just ready for this day to be over, but at the same time, I'm so excited to be here and I'm so happy.
I
So
can't honestly disagree with you because the truth is I feel the same way. It's been a very long day. It's been very dramatic for me before even doing this show. Lots of intense emotional conversations, frustrations, and even a little bit of anger. I think there's been a little Mars in there, I think, because now it just moved into Sagittarius and there's all this fire with the full moon in Leo. I mean, it's like, I don't know. I just have felt, like you said, long day, tired, kind of want it to end, but also super excited to do this.
yeah. Yeah, and I think that, you know, with the emotional stuff, that's really a lot to do with the lunar eclipse because lunar eclipses will bring out that emotional component to everything, you know?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, especially in Leo, which I think it's weird. So like, let's kind of break down how I see this in a really crazy way real quick. The sun is in Aquarius, which is at detriment, right? It's not its happiest place to be. The sun would rather be in Leo. And then the moon is in Leo, which the sun would rather be in Leo, but now it's the moon that's in Leo. And the moon doesn't mind being in Leo, but it's very pompous and very dramatic, so it kind of throws the flame on all the emotions too much. And the sun is trying to cool it off, but it kind of can't because it's in the icy world of Aquarius. So it kind of makes detachment from things, which we learn so much in Aquarius, very difficult.
Yeah. And that's, I do feel like that's the energy that people are experiencing, but also the lesson of that. So people are, at least with my clients, I keep seeing people being faced with that lesson and trying to overcome it somehow. You know what I mean? So sometimes people can get stuck there, but also it can be an opportunity right now to learn that deeper attachment or detachment.
That's a good way to put it.
Right?
I mean, so if I were to ask you how you view this eclipse as a whole, I mean, what's your version of it? What would you say you feel about it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've actually tried to really just think about it in terms of my own life and what I've been seeing with clients. And I also am really into omens. It's something that, like, I try to use omens in every single one of my readings if they come up, if and when they come up. And normally that happens in nature. Typically, I'll go on the same walk in the same part of this park every single day. And usually it's around the same time, but sometimes it's not, but it's the same path every single day where I can really just observe nature. So I'm observing, you know, the water, the grass, the squirrels, the birds, and there's all different kinds of birds, and just seeing what happens, what comes up with that. But it's been so cold, like literally 40 degrees below zero. I have not left my apartment at all. But during this time, Rahu, or the North Node, because I know I'm going to probably be using some Vedic astrology jargon.
That's cool.
So
I love it.
I should just explain. Rahu is a word I'll be using for the North Node of the moon, and Ketu will be the word I'm using for the South Node of the moon. So Rahu, where it is right now, is in an area of the sky in tropical Leo called Ashlesha Nakshatra. And once Rahu entered Ashlesha Nakshatra, I got a pet snake. So what's been super interesting is, although I haven't really spent any time in nature, I kind of have nature in my apartment. And I actually, while I was kind of going into this process of wanting to write about the eclipse and make videos about the eclipse, I was getting a lot of signs from this snake about what this eclipse is all about. So I think what's super interesting about eclipses is that they are so strong in serpent energy already, right? So Ashlesha is a serpent nakshatra, or Nakshatras are basically like constellations or fixed stars in the sky, right?
Right.
So, and I hope that makes sense to your viewers. So, Ashlesha is a very serpentine nakshatra, but all eclipses in general are serpent-like because Rahu in Vedic astrology is the head of a serpent and Ketu is the tail. So this is kind of like this karmic destiny, this karmic circumstance that we're supposed to be facing in our lives. And so what I noticed with my snake is that during this eclipse time, he's been going through a shedding process. And so I think with this eclipse specifically, but eclipses in general too, to a certain degree, this eclipse is so much about our growth. And it's so much about what we need to let go of in order to become who we are meant to be. And because it's Ashlesha, it can do so much with deep healing, because Ashlesha relating to serpents has to do with like the venom or the poison. And the ancients would use venom and poison to heal. Or if you think about like the caduceus, I think that's how you say it. There's two serpents along a staff, right? Mm-hmm. So there's so much about this eclipse that has to do with that serpent energy. And I can like go on and on for hours about this, but because of this, I think that this eclipse has so much to do with deep healing. I think that there are definitely the themes of Leo and Aquarius, where in order to do that deep healing, we need to kind of let go of what we think that the collective needs from us and really step into our own creativity and more of our own identity and our sense of self. But at the same time, that will be put into question. Does that make sense?
Totally.
I don't know if I'm like confusing with all the Vedic astrology terms.
No, I actually, believe it or not, and it might sound crazy, but I have researched a lot of Vedic astrology. I don't call myself a Vedic astrologer. Capiel, KRS, is one of my best friends. We do a lot of interviews together, and we've always hung out, and I know a lot of Vedic astrologers. So, and I implement, I mean, any Western astrologer who implements the nodes is in a weird way a Vedic astrologer, just because it comes from Eastern philosophy. The nodes and their power, like you described, especially with I've always heard it as the dragon's head and the dragon's tail, right? Is like very Eastern philosophy. And the Eastern philosophy is really what gives the power to these nodes, which gives the power to them and the understanding of them. Whereas I think Western kind of is more of a psychological aspect of it all. And Vedic definitely, especially those nakshatras, or what we like to call in Western or tropical, like we'll just do it like basically like, you could basically, they're just zones to try and make it easier for people to understand. They're just zones in the chart in which each zone is ruled by a certain energy. And so if a planet falls into that zone, not only is it in that sign, but it's in a specific zone of that sign, which has extremely different, unique energies and powers that you add on top of it, correct?
Exactly, exactly. And actually, some astrologers will associate a planet that will rule over that energy. Yes. So for this nakshatra, the planet that rules over it is Mercury.
Got you.
So, and this is super interesting too, because my my snake is named after the mercurial god in Hindu astrology. So like, it's so interesting that he came into my life as an omen for this whole process and this whole situation that we're experiencing right now, right?
And you know, in Western we call it decans, right? So or decan. Which decan is it in? And there's traditional ones, usually broken into 3 planets. So it's kind of like every 10 degrees, there's a decan in Western. Yeah. That's our version of nakshatras. You can even go deeper than that. Like then there's other decans that you can pull and do it. So we actually do it in Western. A lot of people don't use it as much as the Vedic people do, but we do have it and we do use it, and they are ruled by planets. And so they're there, but I think that, you know, I think what you've created is this powerhouse, right? Where you're taking those nakshatras and you're combining them with the tropical power and every other little thing that you get from Vedic, and it's a powerhouse, really. And I'm a big believer in taking the best from everything. You know, it's kind of like we're at a world now where I don't know if you could even call astrology Western or Vedic anymore. I think there's a third astrology that has been born.
Right. And people do get really upset about it because there are people that are real purists about it. But I just think if it works, then it works. And how can you ignore it?
Yeah.
I can't ignore it.
No, you
So
can't ignore it. Now, the way that I've looked at this eclipse is one, of course, being the nodes in Leo and Aquarius, and these are two very powerful life force signs, right? In a very different way. They bring life force to the individual and to the collective, right? Leo being the individual, Aquarius being collective. And I think that we're starting to see, especially in the world right now, like, like, what are my needs and are they being fulfilled? And the world around me, what is it that I need? Because we can't do things alone. I think what we're learning through this transit is we can't do things alone. I can't do this show without my crew, without you being a guest on here. It
Right.
doesn't work. Does that make sense? So Aquarius kind of shows
Yeah.
Leo, and I'm a Leo, so it's like, you know, the king learns like, damn, I can't have a kingdom unless there's people in it, and I can't have a kingdom unless there's people on the royal court. You know what I mean? You just can't say off with your head with everybody in the royal court, or it's going to be a pretty lonely royal court, or I'm going to be a freak ball and have a bunch of like dead heads hanging around me that I'm hanging out with. So,
yeah.
right? So it's like that's one of the main things. But I think what's kind of hidden underneath all this is if we really look at, and do you do outer planets? Are you an outer planet girl or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
So, you know, number one, Pluto, Uranus, they're finishing up a long square that has been going on since, technically we can go as far back as when Uranus entered into Aries in 2010, when Pluto had entered into Capricorn in 2008. So here's Uranus heading towards Taurus, right? It's about to head to Taurus, May 15th, 2018, Uranus comes into Taurus, right? So Uranus right now, and by the way, all the planets are direct right now, which is very rare, right? Like, if you look at last year, the planets were direct for like a week and a half, and then that was it, all the planets. We are at over a month right now, coming up on February 2nd, because it was January 2nd, Uranus went direct. All the planets have been direct for almost a month, and they're going to be all the way direct all the way until March, I think 17th, when Jupiter goes retrograde. We are talking about months of all the planets direct. And Pluto and Uranus in this really gnarly, crazy decade, you could almost do, these last 8 years, that have been squaring each other, not officially ending, but we are reaching the point to where Uranus enters into a fixed sign and Pluto's going to be in an earth sign, and so is Uranus. So this kind of crazy collective, kind of disbodulation, however you want to call it, which we've seen through society, because Uranus rules society, and Pluto being in Capricorn, kind of this, really rigid, hard, aspects to society and how they need to change and how the formats of society needs to change, is bringing up how individually we're all having to change in this collective, and it's not easy. It's actually very hard. Does that make sense?
Exactly. And I think a lot of people right now are also dealing with the fact that they want to be individuals. They want to express themselves, like the deepest aspects and parts of themselves, which I think is so resonant with the sun. And that Leo, where it's like, Leo, you want to create your own kingdom, right? And that kingdom can be really small or it can be huge. It can include thousands of people. But how do you maintain your true creative spark, your true individuality in relation to the collective, in relation to these groups that you may or may not belong to? And I personally have found myself, since, the eclipses in August and until now, removing myself from some partnerships, relationships, always in association with this like bigger idea of what is this representing in a larger way, not in a personal way, but like, what am I attaching to in a greater sense, right? Because we're all attached to like certain groups or ideologies or ideas. And I've had to remove myself from some groups, from some people, in order to maintain my own solar aspect, right? My own creative aspect. So I think a lot of people are realizing, yes, they need to work in groups, they need people, but there's a little bit more discernment there too.
Yeah, there is. And I think it's hard because we could feel a little guilty because I think Aquarius, even though it doesn't have as much guilt as Libra, right? They're both signs that associate with relationships, just in different ways. there is a little bit of guilt in Aquarius if like there's a group or a friend or even a relationship that you have to disconnect from. And even though it's hard to turn your back, right? Like it's in Aquarius, it's the higher knowledge of knowing you're turning your back for the right reason because you're going to move forward. Where in Libra, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, like this is unfair, or this just doesn't work, or, you know, we kind of get really judgmental in Libra. But I think with the Leo involved, it kind of is like demanding, like, well, it's just not going the way that I like it. My heart's not happy, so out of here. And I think the Aquarian is trying, and all of us is trying to say, okay, like let's try and do this civil, don't scream down their head, you know, like, and with Mars now amped up in Sagittarius, I think, you know, it kind of makes it where we're all just like ready to just run out the gates. This last couple of months with all the Capricorn, Saturn entering Capricorn, Mercury that was conjunct Saturn for months, how it went back and forth. I mean, it has been a very heavy, deep time. And it's almost like we just, on this eclipse, came out of the deep, you know, I don't know, septic tank. And, you know, we're all like running for the showers a little bit. And there's people that are upset that we're running to the shower so fast. Like, wait for me. It's like, sorry, I've got like shit in my eyeball. Like, I need to go. You know what I mean? We're kind of like, and people don't get it. And then I think the other part of this is Venus, right, is in an opposition with this lunar eclipse. And that makes it even harder because no matter how much you want to do things or be with certain people, I think we learn through mistakes with people, and I think we learn what we like and what we don't like. I think this is a very mirror-like eclipse because oppositions to me are mirrors, right? And with the moon and Venus, it's extremely emotional, mental, because even in Vedic, the moon's very mental, right? Kind of deals with your state of mind, your crazy state of mind, right?
To me, I always think of the moon as being like our perception, and I always think of it as a windshield, right? So like if you have stuff on your windshield, it's not like there's a problem with you. It's just the way that you're perceiving things is off. So like you will be more likely to get in a car accident because how like your window to perceive the world is obscured. Does that make sense? That's how I feel about the moon. I know it's probably a little bit different in Vedic astrology where it's more about the perception and the emotion, whereas Mercury in Vedic astrology is really about like the intellect and the mind in that way.
Yeah, and I understand that part of it because I think you're right, that windshield, like whenever there's transits to the moon, it's like, it could feel really mental, but like, it's like a very personal, spiritual mind. It's like the spiritual mind, right? Like, it's not like the, oh gosh, I don't remember what John said to me yesterday, right? It's not like that. It's kind of like the emotionally charged, like, like I'm trying to understand or figure out, or like I went through a very intense Saturn opposed moon transit. I have a moon in Taurus. And so when Saturn was in Scorpio, it just destroyed my moon, right? And that was the first time in my life I really realized, whoa, the moon affects my mind, my anxiety, my panic, like a lot of these more things because it's uncomfortable, right? And so the moon being in opposition to Venus here is hard. The moon in Leo is stubborn as hell, right? It's like in a fixed sign, and the sun is in a fixed sign, and Venus is in a fixed sign, and so it's very fixed. It's like if you're either like connected and we're on team, or no, right? It's like, and Jupiter's in Scorpio, another fixed sign. There's a lot of fixed energy right now. There's not a lot of flexibility. And Saturn's rigid in its home sign of Capricorn, making it like ride or die, motherfucker.
Yeah, and I think that that's why it's so important within that fixed sort of energy that you just kind of go deeper. You go within yourself. You try to pull out the best of what already is, in a way. You know?
How do you deal with fixed energy?
How do I deal with fixed energy?
Yeah, like when it's really fixed and, you know, like I'm trying to ask for advice from another astrologer because my whole chart is fixed. I'm like Mr. Fixed.
Well, when you have too much fixed, you really have to learn how to go with the flow a bit more, right? Like do things that are super creative, find a way to just like open that up a bit more. So you probably are working with that energy in a way, right? Like fire, that's so creative. Leo is such a creative sign. That's where you can really use that power of manifestation. So I would say that, and to do more things that open up that emotional side, that open up the receptive side, you know?
So then how would you apply that with this eclipse and how it's opposing Venus?
All right, so with this eclipse,
Especially
well,
if relationships are feeling off, and especially if relationships just don't feel like they're gonna work, right? Like, especially like, it could be in any department. When we say this, right, it doesn't mean like your lover. Like, it can be business, friendship. I mean, it can go in a lot of directions, right? So.
Well, when, like, especially with this eclipse, and I might not even be pulling from like the same source here, but I think it's really important to understand, like, the Leo part is so much about your identity and who you are really deep down. Like, it can be your ego. It can be like, there are two sides to the sun, right? One is the ego. It's like this self-created identity that you think that you need in order to survive in the world. And sometimes you do need that. But the other part of the sun is like this real truth. It's this real, literally the spark of the divine that you are, that you can co-create with something greater than yourself. And I think that when it comes down to it, you know, we can use that Leo energy and think about who we truly are. Like, is this relationship really helping me to become truly who I am? Like, maybe there are issues with it. Maybe there are problems with it, right? But if this is ultimately for my best good, if this is ultimately something that can like purify me or take me further on my path, then this relationship is good for me. This is a relationship where I should let go of my ego rather than get stuck there. And I think it's so hard with, especially lunar eclipses, to see things objectively. And if we go back to the symbolism of a snake, like snakes, they will shed their skin, and ball pythons go through a very lengthy shedding process. And during part of this shedding process, the eyes actually get milky and kind of cloud over. They become blind temporarily. Like, they actually cannot see anything or can see very, very little. And I think of that almost as like the lunar eclipse, right? It's like you're not actually able to perceive your world in the same way. And so what that calls for is to use your other senses, right? So it's, you actually have to go within yourself into this internal space to navigate your world. And I'll go back to that symbolism later on, but when it comes to relationships, so these lunar eclipses will make it so that we really can't see how things truly are, or maybe we can't really examine our own emotions in the same way. So we have to find another way.
Yeah.
We have to go deeper. We have to go more internal. So again, if relationships are coming into question, I think it's less about like trying to make something change or trying to make something happen, and more about going within yourself and seeing if there's a way that you can perceive or examine or explore that's not your typical way of doing things. Because something is going to be blocked, something will be obscured during this time, or already has, because the lunar eclipse already happened, right?
Well, and usually it's, I always find like the aftermath of things, like the peak happens, which happened this morning, and then like it's kind of like I said earlier to you, but we didn't say it in this interview, it's kind of like a zit popping, and it's all over the mirror now, and like, what do we do? And oh my gosh, not only we got to fix the blood, but we also got to clean the mirror, because I don't want like that to be all over my mirror anymore. You know, it's kind of like, right? We kind of, and it's like dealing with that and kind of cleaning it up and fixing it. We've reached that, you know, peak cycle. But actually, I want you to take a look. If we could put the chart up so we could see real quick, so Nicole could see. Because what I think is really interesting about this eclipse is Neptune. Now, Neptune's kind of like chilling out in its area, in its happy place of Pisces, but it's making a very unique quincunx, right? The moon at 11 and Neptune at 12, right? So there's this really unique aspect of Neptune in the middle of all of this. And Neptune in its home sign, to me, ever since it came in 2011, has been one of the most powerful transits I've ever felt in my life. Just because Neptune to me is the antenna. It even looks like an antenna. But you know, when it came into Pisces, we see the whole spiritual movement from 2011, 2012 coming extreme. To, I think what it's done is it's taught a lot of us about how media works, how you know, projecting our souls out in creativity and especially more media ways, because it's been interesting to see television or the internet or YouTube and all that stuff really flourish since Neptune came into Pisces. But it's weird to see this eclipse in a very weird quincunx with that, because it's almost forcing our emotions, like you say, to go deeper. And I think especially find that more spiritual alignment thing. Neptune to me, especially in Pisces, is like, is it divine or not? And I think Neptune is hard in Pisces because it's very true. It's like you're either high on drugs or you're in a church high on God. Like there's kind of no in between, right? And so I think a lot of it is like the deception we could tell ourselves, like, no, this isn't good for my heart, but really it's like you doing a line of cocaine in the bathroom, talking to your ex-girlfriend or something and being like, no, this is the right thing to do, you know? And then when really it's like, wait, what is my compassion, and where am I losing myself, and where am I really connected to my higher self and my higher good, you know?
Exactly. And I didn't even mention this, but I study the cards of truth. It's basically using playing cards.
I know them well. What card are you?
Okay. I'm an 8 of diamonds.
Oh, I'm a five of clubs.
Okay, cool. That's actually part of my spread.
Oh,
so
cool.
I'm very familiar. But so today is a 9 of clubs day. So on this lunar eclipse, because we have this 9 of clubs energy, this is definitely a time for more withdrawal, to like just be by yourself, to really go within yourself, because this is the Hermit card, really, if we relate it to the tarot deck. And you know what, the Hermit basically is like carrying this little lantern. He can't really see anything except for the first step in front of himself. And I think things might feel murky, like we don't really know which direction that we are headed in, but we need to trust and have faith in the path and really trust ourselves. Like I think, you know, if you're thinking of taking some kind of crazy action, or like, for instance, if someone broke up with you recently, right? This is probably more of a time to take that time for yourself rather than push and force yourself back into a situation, right?
Yeah, I have a friend going through that actually right now. And this person, I won't say it's a him or a her, but this person is pushing hard to try and get this person back. And that person is not there, you know? And I think that you're right. Like in my analogy of like doing, it's like we kind of have to look at our own deceptions or our own traps that we can set ourselves up into. And Neptune to me is the greatest deceiver of all, because it's our own self that deceives ourselves. You know, it's like, oh yeah, like we can make something seem really good that could be really bad. Like I do it a lot, right? I've got some strong Neptune aspects actually in positivity. So I can use it in a positive way, but just as much it could be used in negative. And when it's in quincunx, like it is with the moon, which I was actually born with a moon quincunx Neptune, you know, you can almost like be triggered emotionally by things that are really sensitive to you, and you can tweak them or turn them into really weird scenarios and create stories. Neptune to me is also kind of like delusional stories, where Jupiter to me is like stories that have some sort of like teaching or outcome, whereas like Neptune is kind of like, you know, I'm just coming up out of thin air, and like, you know, or going on a magic carpet ride to another planet where I just like bullshitted myself to. And I think this is a really weird turning point for people, because I've always been a believer that eclipse time, like we're in right now, right, is a big deal, because here's the lunar eclipse, and then in 2 weeks is the solar eclipse, right? And I always feel that those weeks in between, sometimes we'll get that extra 2 weeks, right? Because there'll be 3 eclipses, right? Like we're going to have in the summer. But it's like there's that weird in between. I call it in between eclipses, which is the most sensitive time. I think that this was just the kickoff of the football game, and this next 2 weeks, especially regarding relationships, regarding more even importantly, like your own happiness, is going to come extremely, and especially with relationships, is going to get really crazy, you know? And it's going to be a little bit haywire. And literally, because the solar eclipse is coming in Aquarius, in the South Node being here, right? you're gonna feel it more than ever. I always feel like the North Node is almost like invisible or like not, right? It's like what we're achieving or trying to aim for, but where that dragon tail is that you described earlier, it literally is like the physical manifestation of things at ultra lightning speed. That's what I've realized.
Wow. Yeah, I always thought of it a lot differently. Like it's basically where we've been. It's kind of like this point of integration and perfection. So maybe in that way, it seems a lot more tangible.
Correct. Like I feel like, especially if I do a reading for somebody and I'm doing a past life regression, because I'm really big in past life with astrology. Like South Node is where you came from and where you're headed is the North, right? But it's interesting that I've noticed in all of my, because I've done 6,000 horoscope videos in the last 6 years. And so I've been following the nodes and following the transits and following the planets to the nodes. Whenever the South Node is involved, and especially the planets or the sun or the moon, oh my gosh, the physical manifestation of that sign or that transit that's happening to it is triple. It's like it actually tangibly happens. It like physically happens. And I think the whole lesson is to aim to a non-tangible new direction, which the North is pointing towards, which is the opposite of what happened.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
So it's kind of...
And I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to say, we were talking about those 2 weeks in between the eclipses, and I was really thinking about that. And what's super interesting, because these eclipses are such serpentine energy, is that, so after the snake like goes blind for a while, the eyes actually completely clear up. So it's so interesting because like we also like get clarity through any crises or like situations. Like if someone breaks up with you, it's like, okay, finally, I know what that weird energy has been for months and months, or how you actually truly feel about me, all these different things. But then about 2 weeks after the eyes get cloudy, and I might be kind of exaggerating or exaggerating that time frame, but it can be about 2 weeks after the eyes change for a snake. That's when they actually shed their skin. So the process actually doesn't become complete until that whole period runs its course. So I think it's so fascinating how like these next 2 weeks are like really that huge buildup that lead up to really kind of moving away from where we've been and going towards what we need to go towards, even though, right, like the moon is with Rahu and the sun's going to be, you know, the solar eclipse is going to be with Ketu. It's still that pattern, though. It's still that like serpentine motion of growth, because eclipses are part of a larger cycle. Rahu and Ketu, they take around 18 months to get through a whole sign. So we've all been working with this Rahu and Ketu energy for much longer than just these eclipse periods. We will work with Rahu in Leo and Ketu in Aquarius for 18 months. So these are just moments of growth in that larger cycle, right? So it's so interesting. So I think about that because snakes only shed their skin because they grow.
It's true. They only do. And I like that you remind people about this 18-month cycle. It's not like it goes away, right? Like the eclipses highlight them for a moment, a very, very small moment. You know, if you think of the 18-month cycle, there's usually what? So in a year, it comes around both sides, right? Every 6 months. And there's either 2 to 3 eclipses, and then it'll maybe do it one more time. So, you know, you only get like 3 eclipse cycles of that energy in the nodes, because sometimes eclipses happen in other signs, even though the nodes are in other signs, especially near the cusps, right? So it's interesting that these zones are kind of lesson points or more intense of understanding the nodes. And it's interesting because this is the second round of the Leo Aquarian round, right? Because the first one was this summer. And we saw it really big in the world with, you know, everything dealing with sex scandals to, you know, leaders, a lot of different areas. But now I think we're really at a place to where, especially because we're dealing with Aquarius, it reminds me of the tarot, the world card, right? I really feel like, you know, this is really about the world now and the individual and how we as people individually are going to connect with the world, or what world we're going to choose in a weird way.
Yeah.
I think that the world could sway any direction at this point. I think it's very fragile right now. It's kind of like, well, it could go here and it could go there, you know? And especially with the unpredictability of Aquarius, I mean, it literally, especially with electrical stuff, electrical grids, technology, I think, especially because the South Node's here in this physical tangent, or physical tangent, you know, tangible energy here, I think we could see some really crazy stuff in these next couple of weeks with electrical stuff or anything dealing with some of that, you know, wild out of nowhere energy. And, you know, it's interesting that Mercury just came into Aquarius, and Mercury, like I said, has gone through hell for 3 months. It was in Sag in detriment. It went through retrograde. It went through Saturn, Pluto conjunction, square to Uranus. So it finally is happy to be in an air sign. And it's in sextile with Mars. So people's lives are going to be changing faster and faster over these next 2 weeks than they have in months, I feel.
Yeah, and I also have heard that this is going to be an eclipse that has a lot to do with new ideas. Like, people can have more ideas than they've had in such a long time, and I personally can feel that. Like, I am a musician, I produce music, I'm an electronic music producer, and I have all these songs, like probably 100 songs that I haven't finished for 3.5 years, and just in the last few weeks I've been thinking about all these ideas and thinking about the studio that I want to go to and all this to finish these songs. So I think that there's definitely like this energy of, you know, breaking through and just really being creative and brainstorming. Like, it really feels like a brainstorming kind of energy. Maybe that's the Uranus coming through and that Mercury, but I can definitely feel it. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's a lot like Aquarius to me is like a lot of chords and how they all come together and work, like the back of a computer, right? When we see all the chords, or like a server, like it's a lot like the Matrix, right? Aquarius is kind of matrixy to me, but especially the physical of the chords connecting. So to me, it's like, how do we untangle all these chords that we have around and actually put them to all work together, you know? And I think that's hard, because when humans, we're all individual chords to the one of God. That's the way I look at it. And it's like, that's why Aquarius rules humanity, is because it's like, okay, it's not easy to get people with this belief and that issue and this issue and that look and that race and that gender and all that, and get them all to call themselves a human, you know, together, because we're all so unique, we're all so different, we're also, how do we fit into this puzzle together? And I think that we're being forced to kind of accept people for who they are more, which is not easy, especially in Leo. It's like, it doesn't fit into my kingdom, right? The moon in Leo is kind of like, it doesn't feel right. Like, you smell or whatever, right? It's like, you know, I don't know, you know, the pheromones aren't right or whatever. And, you know, Leo or lions literally piss on their territory, right? And if you cross that line and you're not, you know, smelling that vibration, you're dead, basically. So Leo kind of is having to, but you know what's odd is Leo is where the North Node is. So I think with Rahu and Leo, it's kind of like we're all being told to be more Leo-ish, you know? That's the weirdest part, is like, I think it's hard because we want to do the right thing and help everybody out. And of course, it's a big part of it, but it's like, we got to help ourselves out first and be happy first before kumbaya can really happen.
Yeah, you need to take care of your own kingdom. And when that's in order, then you can expand and help more people, or, you know, bring other people into your kingdom. And I also think like that there are two sides, as I was saying before with Leo, where there's this like egotistical side, or I don't want to use that word, but there's a side of like the self-created identity, right? Where we're like, you're not good enough to be here, or I don't want you. But when you're actually in line with your divine creative source, you know, life just flows through you in a way. And so I think that part of this eclipse is trying to teach us that the more that we're in line with who we truly are without any pretense, like our pure creative energy, like, you know, these people that work a 9-to-5 job, that they hate their job, but they're doing it because they think they need to do it, right? The more that they're in line with what they truly want to do, the more that all of these cords start plugging in to the plugs that they're meant to plug into, instead of being a tangled mess, because, you know, the person that actually wants to work in an office is trying to be an artist, and the artist is trying to work in an office. You know, it's like, we need to all step into our own sun and plug into where we need to plug into, rather than trying to be something we're not. So I think that the sun and Leo also have that quality of like, try to try to find what truly is meant to be your kingdom. And there's this saying in India, and I heard it from someone else, so I'm not sure exactly how this goes, but I think it's, for every grain there is a name. So you can't truly have something that's not meant to be yours. So you might as well enjoy the things that you were meant to have and the kingdom you're meant to rule over and who you're meant to be, rather than trying always to go after other people's grains.
I like that. It's like weird. Have you ever seen how they have those like grains and people like write on them? I don't know why my guys are showing me those. You know, so it's like, instead of like trying to always like rewrite the grain and do all that crap, it's like sometimes appreciating those grains a little bit more, you know, and it's weird because I'll be honest, I'm a Leo and I'm a very intense Leo, right? So like I've fallen into this Aquarian trap lately where it's like I care so much about, you know, what other people think or what other people are going to say or just other people, and then sometimes putting off my own happiness, which is never what I've ever done in my whole entire damn life, you know what I mean? It's like crazy, like, and people actually, even somebody said here in the chat room, he's not letting her speak enough. I was like, wow, I thought I was doing pretty good actually. And it's like little things like that, especially being a Leo, you know, it's like, you deal with that shit every day, you know what I mean? And then it's like, oh, should I care what this person actually says? And it's like, well, okay, I should listen to it, but at the same time, it's like, I'm expressing myself, and I don't know. What do you think? I mean, it's like, I think that there are two signs that are very hard to master together, because the king sits on a tower or in a castle by himself with only a little bit of people. And then it's a bunch of people, the common man, the blacksmith, the person milking the cow, the prostitute, you know, I always imagine like old, like, you know, Games of Thrones lifestyle whenever I think of Leo and Aquarius. And I'm always like, okay, there's the people who are either up there or the people who are just the common denominator.
Right. But if we think about the sun when it's really healthy, and I'm talking about the sun because the sun rules Leo, and we can really understand Leo through the sun. A really healthy sun, like if you have a really strong, beautiful sun in your chart, and in Vedic astrology, if your sun is exalted, then you'll be very powerful. You'll really radiate yourself into the world. But a powerful sun also takes care of those who have less, right? A powerful sun helps people that need to be helped. If a powerful sun person sees someone that's on the streets and needs a place to sleep that night, they'll offer a bed. So a really healthy, strong sun, you know, is able to reach into that Aquarian nature because they are so strong within themselves, and they have created the kingdom where they feel secure, and, you know, they have what they personally need, and they feel good about themselves, and they know that life is going to provide for them. So there is this like higher evolutionary frequency of the sun, and therefore Leo, that is actually super humanitarian. And you can't forget that Saturn in Vedic astrology is actually the son of the sun. And Saturn rules over Aquarius in Vedic astrology too. So it's like, it kind of comes back, you know what I mean? You have to integrate. There's this point of integration that happens after a certain point. And we all, you know, we're all learning that in this lifetime. If we had perfected it, then we wouldn't be here.
Well, I like what you bring up about the sun and a strong sun and how it can take care of suns that aren't as strong, right? I mean, it's kind of funny because I always look at astrology as it's a little bit harsh, right? Like, it's kind of hard to tell someone, oh yeah, your sun is pretty weak, you know? So you don't say that. You don't say that in a reading, right? Like, I've learned through many readings, oh, I'm not going to just tell you, well, you have Mars in a fall position, you have the sun in a really weak position, you know, your moon's in a horrible place, you're fucked. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, there's also, I think we all have our own unique chart for a reason, but I think when you bring up strong suns having to be there for other suns, it's kind of like the hero story, right? Like, we're all part of the hero story. And having a strong sun, I'll be honest with you, as somebody who does, as a Leo, it's a very, it's very like, you can't just waste it all on yourself. You have to be there for others, because self-absorption does not get too far. You get very bored, you get lonely, you know, it doesn't fulfill you. It doesn't bring you anything at the end of the day, and it doesn't fill your cup.
No, and I honestly am so surrounded by Leos. My mom is a Leo, my sister, my grandmother, my great-grandmother. It's this whole matriarchy of Leos. And so I've always been around that energy, and I think I've really learned how to deal with it. And I see so many good things about Leos. Like, Leos are so generous typically, and they really do care about people. And I think the part of like the self-absorption and just thinking about yourself, I feel like that helps a person to be generous sometimes. You know, that gives that person the security that they need to be that generous or humanitarian or whatever person. Like, my sister is the only person I know that sends out holiday cards for every single holiday. And she's a Leo. So I feel like, you know, Leos, in their self-absorption, that's where they find that quality of generosity, caring about other people. You know, like, I don't call every single one of my friends on their birthday, and I should, but I'm not a Leo. You know what I mean?
And Leos, we do that. Leos, we actually do that. We're very like, hey, how you doing? Oh my God, it's your birthday. I miss you. When are we gonna hang out? Oh my gosh. You know? Yeah.
I'm like the worst, and she gets so mad at me, but you know, we all have our own place, and that's what I think this eclipse is so much about. Really, at the end of the day, it's like, how can you find your place in the world? And it's so weird because, like I said, I really look at omens, and I've been so drawn to watching videos of people that like are blind, because I was trying to understand what it's like to be blind, because my snake is going through this process. And I think that Ashlesha is a serpent nakshatra, and serpents, they depend on others, right? They actually do depend on others, because, and I don't want to use the word others, but they depend on the light of the sun. They depend on the heat of the sun, because they can't create their own body heat. So there's this kind of symbolism of dependence with this eclipse. And really, with that, thinking about how, like, during this time, like, we're blinded, or, you know, like a snake is blind and then shedding its skin. We all have these things, these weaknesses. We all have these really difficult parts or aspects of ourselves. And I'm thinking now again about Jupiter being in Scorpio too. It's like we all have these dark parts of ourselves, these things that hold us back. And with the lunar eclipse, we have this programming that holds us back. And how can we achieve great things? How can we contribute to humanity? How can we be powerful forces in the world despite these circumstances? Like, I was watching all these YouTube videos of these blind girls that do their makeup. And they're doing their makeup like 10 times better than I can. Right. And they're blind. And it's like, and why are they doing makeup? There's all these questions, but it's because that's who they are deep down. And I feel like that's so much what this eclipse is about, is like just being you. Because the only way to truly contribute to this Aquarius, the greater good, the greater group, is to be truly who you are, whether or not that makes people mad or if you hurt people's feelings, because ultimately there's something greater to it. There's a greater aspect, you know? I know, and you hit it right on the head. And honestly, I think that's what makes this eclipse so hard, is because the fact is, like, you know, we are who we are, and we feel how we feel, and our heart is what our heart is, and our soul is what our soul is. And we can only be that when we try to, like, take that away from ourselves in order to please other people or do it. You know, I've always also looked at Leo and Aquarius, like, because I used to be an actor, is like the actor in the audience, right? It's like, if I'm playing the role for the audience, I'm going to suck. But it's always when I'm playing the role for myself, people love it, right? You know, it's like, it's like, yes, that's the integration. You know, and so I think that's what you hit the nail on the head, because that's the hardest part of this is, boy, oh boy, there are going to be broken hearts out there in all aspects. It doesn't have to be love, but it's just like, we're our own self, and that's how we are, and we got to be that. We just can't not, like, you know what I mean? We just can't just deny ourselves of that, especially with Jupiter and Scorpio. The doors will not open if
the scorpionic desires and truth of our individual self and our root chakra, our sexual side, our true nature. Because to me, I feel like Scorpio is just our true animalistic slash reptile nature that we all have in us. It's very reptilian, believe it or not, you know? And that's why the Palladians are in Taurus and the reptilians are over in Scorpio. And that's why Antares, the fixed star, is, you know, red, one of the biggest gas giants. And even though it's in Sagittarius and tropical, it's technically over in Scorpio and makes that scorpionic kind of red, you know? And so I think that's Jupiter's heading towards that zone now, even though it won't be there till next year, or technically until 2019. You know, I think that true nature of who we are is trying to come out, but I think we're all having issues bringing it out. This eclipse brought it out a little bit. Yeah. The next eclipse, it'll bring it out a little bit more. Jupiter retrograde to March. Then it's going to, you know, really kind of bring that back full circle and kind of see, oh yeah. And then I think when Jupiter leaves Scorpio, I think, you know, it's going to be easier to do that. And the North Node will be in Leo till the end of 2018. So I think we have all year. And I think on a long-term scale, with Venus going retrograde this year, Mars going retrograde this year, two of the personal planets, two of the planets that deal with our ego and relationships and self, we haven't even scratched the surface yet on personal relationships and ego. And Venus is going to retrograde in Scorpio and Libra, which are the two signs that deal with connection, sex, and love and relationships. And I did a big interview with Astrolotta. I don't know if you know her channel, like 2 years ago. We did it about love. And we both agreed that love wasn't going to come to the full circle of understanding until the end of 2018 with these eclipses. And the fact that Saturn went through Libra and Scorpio since 2009, and here comes Venus to finally retrograde over all that. And we just had Mars retrograde through both of these signs over the last couple years. Like, this is what it's all peaking towards, is the end of 2018 with the nodes changing signs of dealing with love and relationships and society and our true self, Jupiter leaving Scorpio, all those things. It's all coming towards the end of this year. So I think that this is just a little taste. Like, this is just a morsel of this year and relationships. Right.
Yeah, and I think people just shouldn't forget, as I mentioned before, that this Rahu and Ketu cycle, as you said, is going to be until November, right? So it's like, this is going to bring up things, but it's not over. Like, it doesn't end there. Like, this is like a more intense time. And typically, I personally feel these eclipses like 2 to 4 weeks before and then 2 to 4 weeks after. Like, I seriously was in bed almost every single day for a couple of weeks a week ago, like literally just like resting and needing to sleep and like so tired. Like, it wasn't like my laziness. It was just pure physical fatigue. And so I think that there's like some internal change happening for people, and for other people, it's going to be some external event. But though this time is more concentrated, it doesn't end here. And I think that's exciting, but also I think for some people it's like they want this all to be done, you know, especially if it's people going through relationship issues. They're like, I just want this breakup to be over, or this fighting to be over, or whatever it is. But
yeah, it's going to continue on, and it's more than just love. It's business relationships, it's friendships, it's all coming full circle into this. And you know, speaking of endings, before we end, I wanted to see if there was anything that, first of all, I wanted to tell the audience, we're live, of course, so if you have any questions here for Nicole before she goes, I'm looking at the chat right now, so if you have any questions, put them up, because I definitely want her to answer a couple cool questions. But while we're having people put the questions, is there something besides this eclipse? Let's get off eclipses for a second, because oh my gosh, I was just like, I feel like bleh, from talking about eclipses, and this eclipse especially, like, most eclipses I'm usually like, woo, and I do feel that, but man, it like you said, it's tiring, it's draining, it's intense. So what else, is there anything else that you're kind of dealing with right now in the astrology world that you want to talk about to people?
Well, one thing that I started to do, which I think is super fun, is looking at the planets and how they impact appearance. So this is a series that I just started on my YouTube channel, which is actually like, people might think that I'm just trying to be creative and I'm thinking about Venus and, you know, creating a style or a look for Venus. But actually, the ancient astrological texts, or very early astrological texts, actually describe what the planets look like. And I think it's so fascinating that there are physical descriptions of planets. And, you know, if you look at a birth chart, these planets impacting, you know, yourself, your ascendant lord, things like that can really.
Yeah, so you just did one on Saturn, right? Where you did the makeup of Saturn.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be really fun. And I think even if you're not interested in makeup, if you're not interested in fashion, you're going to learn so much because this is actually taken from real descriptions of the planets. Like Venus rules over curly hair because Venus also rules over spirals. And the sun, we're talking about Leo, right? So the sun rules over baldness. So if you have sun impacting certain areas of your chart, you could be bald. And there's a deeper meaning to that. So because the sun is bald, that actually symbolizes a personality and sort of spiritual aspect of the sun, because the hair is something that we can't control, right? Like we can't move it like a finger or a limb of our body. It's just kind of hanging off of us. So not having any hair shows that sun doesn't really care about things that the sun can't control. The sun is focused on his own kingdom and the things he does have control over, because that's going to be the most productive. That's the most powerful. You know what I mean? So there's so much that you can learn by understanding the way that the planets impact appearance. It's so cool. Like, and you've probably heard of face readers and things like that, but it's really like integrated. And I'm going to be doing that series starting, I guess. I already started it. But
I just actually showed on the screen your channel, and I showed him your last video was the Saturn one. But you know, it's interesting, like even like with rising signs, like I can look at somebody, and even though I might know their sign, I'll be like, okay, like there's rising personality and things that show up. Like I'm a double Leo, so I always am wearing a crown. My head always looks like, my hair looks always like a crown. It's crazy. And when I'm going through a really bad time in my life, my hair goes down like a drooping lion, like, oh, you know, like my hair goes, but when I'm confident and feeling like a king again, it's always really up high, you know? So there's little things like that, or like I can always tell a Taurus by their eyes. They got those cow eyes, you know?
Yes, they are. They're just like huge
and cowy and big cow eyes. And there's those little things, you know what I mean? And like, you know, and then I'll like look at like a guy or a girl who's real ripped and their skin's like beautiful and like really muscle toned, and I'll be like Capricorn, you know, I'll be like, and then I'll like see kind of a person like a little softer, and I'll be like, oh, Cancer, yeah, nice and relaxed, you know, and perfect. Maybe there's little things, you know, that you can pick up on people with the physical traits. I think it's interesting that you're gonna kind of create the personas out of them.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting because also, besides like just pieces of artwork of the deities in Vedic astrology, there aren't really examples of each of the planets. Like no one's ever tried to create like, here's the moon as a person, as a human being. And so I think it'll be really fun. And also,
what about the McDonald's moon guy? Do you remember him who sang on the moon for Big Macs?
No, I actually don't.
Some of the older audience probably remembers that. There used to be a guy for Big Mac, and he used to be on a moon, and he was a moon, and he would sing the Big Mac moon song. But that was the only moon guy I ever saw. Do you remember that? Yeah. So, but I think it's cool what you're doing, especially with the planets and bringing life to them, you know. You know, Gustav Holst did it with music, right? Back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. He did, and you should look this up, he did all the planets in classical orchestras. So
I feel like I've actually heard of that and probably have seen
my favorite is Mercury, because I don't know if this is a Vedic or a Western thing. So like I'm a Leo rising, right? So like, sure, the ruler would be the sun. But based off traditions of the oldest astrology text, the sun and the moon cannot be rulers of the chart because they're not planets and they're gods, they're luminaries. So Cancer and Leo rising have to use the sign that's next to him, which is both Mercury, right? Because Mercury's Gemini before Cancer, and then Virgo is Mercury after Leo. So the ruling planet for Leo and Cancer risings is Mercury. So I've always, and I have Mercury on the rising, so I've always been very connected with Mercury. And my North Node's in Gemini, so I've been very connected with Mercury. So that's my favorite song, because it's really high octave and all over the place and really, and then like if you hear Saturn, it's like, And then Mars is the warrior song, like, and then Jupiter's like the bum, 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 like really like positive and so it's interesting listening. And then Venus, of course, is very feminine and very, you know, cool in that way. So and he wasn't even an astrologer. He was just a composer, basically. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm using my own music to edit everything, so maybe I'll have to keep that in mind. Like, I was thinking, like, which songs of mine are most representative, and I was like, I'll probably have to rewrite stuff, but I think it'll be worth it just for my own sake, my own little section of Leo where I need to express myself even if no one else cares, right?
Yeah. So we got some questions for you. Okay. People are asking what your sign is.
I never tell people my sign, so that has to remain anonymous.
That's anonymous.
Or not anonymous, but.
Okay. Hold on. There's so many. Somebody was saying, don't get started on twin flames and that stuff. That's a topic for another discussion. What's your view of twin flames? Just your quick view of it.
That's so funny. I was thinking about this. I used to really believe in twin flames. Like, I thought that there was definitely a twin flame out there for me. And I still do believe in twin flames, but I think that people think that once they get with a twin flame, it's going to be this amazing relationship and nothing's ever going to go wrong. But I think that twin flames are like this supercharged karmic relationship, because I think that I actually have been with my twin flame and we were so similar, like in every single way. And I just don't really think that they're conducive to like a healthy relationship oftentimes, like in this world, in this reality, unless you've both worked through things, both of you, I don't really think that it can always end up being happy and this like happily ever after that people envision. It's more of like this deeper karmic thing, because if it's a twin flame, it's an aspect of yourself. So if one of those aspects of yourself isn't, resonating on the same frequency, it's just not going to work. It's going to be a lot of trouble, which was what happened with me if that was in fact my twin flame, but it seemed like it was. So
yeah, no, I know twin flames is a really weird subject, and of course we could go on it for hours, but I've always kind of felt like it's like I don't even know how to describe it, but it's like, it's so similar and so understanding, and sometimes I think it's like otherworldly, and it's like, can it work together, or are you supposed to be split on this life and do your work in different ways? And I mean, it goes on for hours, but I'm not going to talk about that. We're going to keep going into questions for you. A lot of people have been talking about this exhaustion. A lot of people were putting more about their sun signs, but I always pass over those because I don't think it's fair to everybody watching just talking about one sun sign. But, somebody wrote and we'll kind of mix this as a double question. So people are asking about the exhaustion, but the other question is, have you had your abilities increased in this last month at all?
Oh, that's a really good question. So the exhaustion part of it, like, I keep going back to the snake metaphor because it really, to me, is the most potent omen. But when snakes are going to shed their skin, they need so much sleep. They will not use any energy at all. So if this is going to be a part of this, Rahu in Leo, Ketu in Aquarius energy that we need to like grow, it's like this kind of amped up growth process right now. Like, we need all the energy that we can get, especially if you're having this eclipse impact your sun, your 6th house, your 6th cusp, even your 12th house, your 12th cusp, because it's like an axis there. Like, you're probably going to be feeling really tired, and having Jupiter in Scorpio and having this happen in Auslasia, it's such a potent eclipse for deep healing that people that do need physical healing, that do need even deeper psychological or emotional healing, they might be needing to sleep. They might need that actual rest. Venus is actually one of the planets of regeneration, and it's also a planet of healing. And so having Venus as part of this eclipse, or at least having it in Aquarius, is also kind of showing that there's this chance of recuperation. There's this chance of healing just from the energy presented. So people, part of healing, like if you're going to go and exercise, the only way that that muscle is going to grow is if you take a break. Like if you just exercise every day, you're never resting, you're never going to gain a bigger muscle. So part of this eclipse having Venus there is like needing that rest so that you can become stronger. And so if it's definitely, if you're trying to work something out or even physically work something out, that's where that exhaustion is coming from. And then I forgot what the other question was, actually.
If your abilities have been enhanced over the last month. I don't know if that's kind of an open-ended question of what abilities. I mean, there's a lot of abilities out there, but whatever abilities that you feel. I'm assuming they're saying psychic or intuitive or astrological is my presumption.
Yeah, I would say yes, definitely they've increased somewhat. Like there's just been more of a flow, and I've been able to tap into like parts of my faculties that I haven't been able to access for a while. But I also think that I think my dreams have been so intense and so enhanced. And like, because of all the sleep, just having so many symbolic, like potent, incredible dreams. And I think a lot of the spiritual work I do happens in dreams. And so in that case, like definitely that part of it's been amped up. But as far as like crazy, like telepathy and stuff, I feel like I've had other periods in this year where that's been more activated than this time frame specifically. So this has been much more about like going into my subconscious other worlds than like kind of being active in my everyday life in that way.
Got you.
Like I've needed to take a break, really.
Yeah, you know, I feel the same way because I've spent the last 5.5, well, coming up 6 years in April, every day doing a video, and I still do a video every day on my app. But after 6,000 videos and moving studios to build this, to make this happen, took like 2 months. And so I stopped doing my live shows as much, and I stopped doing a lot of my content that I usually do. And I had to take a big break, even though it wasn't a break, if that makes sense. But from my spiritual, like, kind of place, I kind of needed to disconnect from it for a while and kind of needed to be in reality. I think that was the Saturn Capricorn switch anyways. I think Saturn kind of turned on reality and kind of turned off spirituality a little bit. I don't know, that might sound crazy. I don't know how if you feel the same way, but it kind of like made me go, we've already built the spiritual platform. We need to build the platform of the platform now, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That does make sense. I can definitely feel that. But there's like a lot of other stuff that's going on with me with my Saturn. So it's hard for me to like differentiate, you know, what exactly that energy is doing. Because for me, it's more about like, yeah, I've been studying for so long and now I'm kind of like putting a lot out there.
Got you.
So
yeah,
it's a little bit different. And I do see like with Saturn and Capricorn, like, you know, being more public and putting myself out there more and things like that. So I think for me, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, and it's going to be a competition out there, I'll be honest with you. As somebody who's been doing online astrology since 2009, when people were laughing at us, literally laughing and making fun of us, and I was on all those talk shows where they make fun of you, literally. And now that I'm seeing everybody starting to come out, there's still not a lot, you know, there's more than ever. Now if you type in astrology horoscope, it's like you'll see so many people now. It's crazy. And you popped up crazy because we were doing a production meeting here and I'm like, man, I need to start bringing some guests on. But I'm like so over the astrology community. I'm going to be real with you. Because I've gone to all the big things. I've been a member to some of these organizations. And I've been very public about this, that I really feel that the astrology community is lame. I think it's, and it needs to change. And so we were all eating lunch and you popped up on the TV. We had YouTube on, we had played one of my videos and then it does the auto suggestion. And so it was just flipping through and like, we were in there for an hour and just going, you know, and I don't mean to sound like an asshole, but just like, you know, there's just so many lame astrologers out there, you know, it's just like, okay. And then you popped up and we're like, who in the hell is this? And we listened, you know, we're like, damn, not only is the presentation good, but the information's amazing. So, you know, kudos to you because you're doing a good job. And I don't just bring people on to bring them on.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And I've been into this spiritual stuff since I've been 12, started reading tarot cards when I was 12. And like, I can totally relate to just like people making fun of it and being like, you're so weird. And I genuinely do this because it's who I am, rather than I've seen a lot of people do it because it's like trendy or because they think it's a good way to make money. So I feel like it's hard. It's hard when you're trying to find like sincere people, or, you know, I don't even want to get into it because it just starts making me like mean or something.
And this is what I want to end with, is I do like to get into it because, and I know that you don't want to, but it's like, as somebody who's been doing this so long, you're right. The trendy thing is a big thing. It's like people are, you know, and it's good. People are excited because they've seen it, so they want to do it. And I think it's great, but I think that, you know, it's also at the same time that we also have the old school astrology system where people are afraid because they're afraid of what the old school astrologers are going to say, or that what the organizations are going to say. And I don't know if you've ever been involved with that part of it, but there's actually, just like the government, there is like a status quo, like old school astrology organizations, and they literally are demonizing YouTube astrologers as if they're not qualified enough, as if they're not good enough to be part of like, and even though they use their technical saying, no, we're not that way, it's kind of like they are, you know, if that makes sense, they are. And there's like a little jealousy too, because the followers are very intense, where these guys have been putting, and girls have been putting out books for the 80s and 90s and lectures for 20 years and have like 300 people following them. And
I know, I have seen that. I have seen that, and I've felt it, and I've had people like, I mean, I've personally had to deal with it too. And I'll say two things. I want to say two things about this subject. And I think this is really in the line of the eclipse, the Leo and Aquarius. But first off, I have amazing teachers, Michael Reed and Ernst Wilhelm. They're like so forward thinking. Like they're coming up with their own ideas and stuff like that. And it really like inspires me in astrology to do the same thing. I'm definitely self-taught with tarot, but I just feel like I try to align myself with people that like actually are forward thinking. They want to try new things. They're not just going to trust everything that's gone before them. And then secondly, besides that, like one thing I've noticed too is just like the spiritual community. You would think that in the spiritual community that people would be so nice and so open and so compassionate and helpful, but like the spiritual community can kind of be the worst. Like I've never experienced so much backstabbing, so much like hate in my entire life. And it's so sad. And like, I hope that, you know, I'm trying personally with this eclipse, I'm really trying to align myself with people that don't want that drama, that are really sincere about what they do. And they're not thinking about like money, and they're not being greedy, and it's about the message rather than the business. And so I don't know. I just want to put that out there, that it's like, oh, it's a real, I just couldn't believe it when I first started to really put myself out there, like how cutthroat it is. Like people are desperate. They're really desperate. They'll take ideas from you. They'll do whatever they can. And it's like, I just am trying to do my own thing. And I think that's really a lesson with this Leo eclipse, is like, just focus on your own path, focus on who you are, and everything will fall into place.
I agree. I think it's good to have good teachers. You can't do this without a good teacher. And I think bridging into this next subject that you brought up, it's like, that one's the most intense subject that I like to talk about. You know, because and
I mean, I don't want to say too much, but I
want to say this is so that crazy. Spirituality is not a shield of a different person. We're all humans. So I think there's that, oh, we're in a spiritual world. So, or I'm talking with somebody who's spiritual or a spiritual leader, so they're different in some sort of way. They're more higher evolved. We are all on the same playing field. Whether you're an astrologer, or that person's a tarot reader, or that person's a psychic, or that person's a preacher, they're still going to say, damn it, when they slip and fall in the bathroom and drop on themselves on pee and get pissed. And then when their iPhone pops in the toilet, they're going to F and scream and get on the phone and yell at their husband or their wife or whatever. Like we're humans. Like, we're human after all. And there is no such thing as like the spiritual community having like I think because it's supposed to, we all expect it to be a certain way, which I did a huge documentary on this called The Age of Deception in 2016, which is basically the deception of the spiritual community is turned into the new Christianity. It's like, oh, if you're not doing yoga or you're not eating this way or you're not doing this, you're not spiritual. Or, oh, you reacted that way and got mad and backstabbed me. Or really it's not backstabbing. Really it was just maybe we didn't work out. Or maybe, you know, it's like crazy, like you're bad because you're spiritual and you're not acting the way that spiritual should be. Like,
yeah, it's dogmatic.
It's dogmatic. And when you have dogmatic and spirituality, you get religion.
Yeah, it's so true. And I mean, you're on YouTube, so it's like sometimes you'll see these comments and you're just like, what? Like, what are you even thinking? You know, it is dogma. It's like, you're not, because I do the tropical zodiac with Vedic astrology, and people hate that. So many people hate that when they're coming from either traditional Western or traditional Vedic astrology. And I mean, it can be stressful. It was really stressful in the beginning, but you know, I'm used to it now, and I think it's just a part of it. But I really think that we need to lose the dogma if we want to grow and if we want to continue learning.
Yes, I agree. And honestly, I think that's a good way to end today's message, because to be honest with you, the only way to grow from this is without dogma and without the judgment. And we're all, you know, our Leonine hearts and selves, and we do our best to be our best. And I think we're all not perfect, you know. I think perfection is impossible. And especially spirituality, I guess, is ruled by Pisces, which is the most imperfect place in the planet. Every color.
It's dirty.
It's all over the place. It's 1 minute you're high and up and yay, and the next minute you're down in the dumps, you know? I mean, it literally is the two fish, right? And it's the reason why it's the two fish is one fish is out of water and the other fish is deep underwater, right? So it's like, well, which one is conscious, or which one is out of water, or it's a weird thing. So it was a pleasure to have you on today, and I'm super happy that you spent the time and went through some of the early struggles to get this show live, but I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been really nice talking to you. Actually, this is like our first real conversation. So
it is. I like to kind of do real conversations live.
Yeah, I like it. I like.
Why not, right? It's like, especially when I talk about astrology or spirituality, I like to get impromptu live, you know?
Yeah, and you're good at that. So thank you for having me on, really. And it's very nice to be able to connect with your audience, and hello to everyone.
Yeah, no, and thank you for being on. And definitely, if you guys want to check more out about Nicole, you can check her out. What's your YouTube again? It's
Listen to the Stars, and I have a website to NicoleBrenny.com. So I do readings, coaching, and the readings I have are tarot and astrology. So you can like check that out. Plus the cards of truth that we were talking about earlier.
Awesome. Perfect. So make sure that you check her out. And of course, if you guys want to see me, I'm going to be in LA and Hollywood at Liberate Hollywood, or if you want to live stream it, it's going to be available. Check that out. It's on my Facebook. And then of course, tomorrow I'm doing my February webinar. So check that out at inclusiveastrology.com. Well, thanks everybody for being a part of High Vibe TV today, and of course on the Leo King Network. I truly appreciate it. Hope to see you guys tomorrow, and I hope to see you guys for the next solar eclipse. And by the way, I don't know if you guys all know, I'm doing spiritual dance music tonight. Don't you guys think I'm crazy? In the next couple hours, we'll be live on spiritual dance music. We'll be live on the Leo King Network. Thanks so much for all your support. Thank you, Nicole, for being here, and we will see you all later. Yeah, no problem, Nicole. Thanks so much.